Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Care Nomad. My name is Matthew Wilbanks, and I'm here with my good friend and mentor, Dr. John Okinaga. And Dr. O, you got a busy morning ahead of you.
Dude, today is so. Did I tell you I got a app that schedules my life for me now?
Oh, that's good.
So it's called Calendly. You ever heard of that?
I have not.
So it's this automatic scheduler because I'm doing the ACBC fellow stuff.
Mm.
I'm just busy. So
Yep.
basically, people can book appointments through me through this app.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a poor decision, Matthew.
I think it is
Like,
too.
let me see. So it basically I stick in times and dates that I'm free to meet,
Mm-hmm.
basically, and so people don't request meetings with me anymore. Posted it for all of our students in Canvas. Like, if you want to meet, here's the link. Whatever. It's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour, and then also for those doing ACBC certification or whenever someone emails me that they want to meet. Yeah. So I send out this link. So when you texted, what time did you text me this morning? 7?
Mm-hmm.
And are we meeting at 9? I was like, no, because there's already something planned. So I have something at 8, 9, 11, 12:30, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and then I have the church fair here on campus from 6 to 8.
Ah, the church fair. Those were the days.
Yeah, church fair. So I'm like, I didn't plan my life well with this thing. And so now, I have all my I've met with how many doctoral students did I meet with this week so far? So Monday I had a 8:30, a 9:30, a 10 o'clock, a 10:30, an 11:30, and a
Oh
2
my
o'clock.
gosh.
Tuesdays I have blocked off because this semester I teach at 9 and then I teach till 9 at night. So Tuesdays I didn't allow anyone access to my Tuesday schedule.
Hmm.
And then Wednesday we had 9, 10:30, 11:45, 2:30, 3:30. And then yesterday was a easy day. Yesterday was 10 o'clock, 11:30, 2:30, and then I had a meeting for Japan at 7:30 last night.
Dang.
School hasn't even started, bro.
you gotta block off more time, man.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I didn't plan this. I didn't think anyone would actually like plan stuff with me like this often. So I was like, and I actually did it not for SWIBIT students. I did it for ACBC because I'm not sponsoring. What do we
You're a
call it?
fellow now.
Supervising.
You've got some refiguring to do with that calendar. Try to.
No kidding. Oh, and then I also agreed to be an ACBC grader.
Ugh. Well, we could talk about busyness and time management, but I actually have something that I think would be good to discuss.
Uh-huh.
Something you're kind of going through right now, and it's ongoing sicknesses. Now,
Ew.
in your case, your wonderful wife, Nicole, has celiac and really, really altered pretty much her entire life.
Yeah.
And so, kind of one of the things is that I know for you, Dr. O, especially with addiction, you have to deal with a lot of talk about disease and long term effects of medication, stuff like that. But something new in your life that you're learning to deal with is long term effects of, actual diseases that just don't go away. Um, so for you, practically speaking, first off, how
Mhm.
has how has Nicole's diagnosis really changed, especially your dynamic with her?
Um, let me see. Nicole sent this to me yesterday. Where is it? She was feeling really bad on Thursday. She sent me something. I gotta. Man, my wife texts me a lot.
Oh man, I can't believe you have good communication with your wife.
Wow, bro. Here it is. So this was the other day. She goes, "I'm sorry you married someone who seems to be sick on and off all the time."
Hmm.
You know, and I married way above my pay grade. Like she's the one suffering and in pain, and she says she's sorry.
Hmm.
But I said you're fine. I'm used to it. Mom's been sick for 30 years, so I'm a pro. Maybe I should have been more caring and not as jokey about it. But I've had a lot of practice. I mean, my mom's been sick since 1994, and I've seen how my dad is cared for my mom.
Hmm.
And then, all of my grandparents have either had cancer or strokes, and I've seen how my parents have cared for them. So it's not, maybe I don't talk about it. I'm just used to it. So there's um, what was your question? Sorry, I
Yeah,
got
it
kind
was
of. What was your
how
question
is
again?
how is your dynamic change with Nicole?
Uh,
Specifically, like how you care for her and things like that.
I guess it's changed in. It can be tiresome.
Hmm.
You just get weary when she goes to the ER or scans. I guess physically causes anxiety sometimes. Not anxiety, but like anxious thoughts, like how bad is it gonna be?
Hmm.
And it's hard,
Hmm.
you know. There's been a couple times with some of her um, doctor's visits or whatever. I mean, a couple times they thought it was cancer or whatever.
Oh
So
yeah, I remember you talking about that.
so those are emotionally and mentally draining.
Hmm.
And then if you if I don't guard my heart, I don't guard my mind and allow my mind to go to bad places, it's like I'm gonna be a single dad who's gonna want to marry a fat guy. All these fears come in. So that makes it hard in those cases. Like, what's it going to be like for James just
Hmm.
having me, Yeah, and that's worst case scenario.
Right.
As you just lay in bed and if you let your mind wander, that's where it can go, and that's not healthy.
Hmm.
Um, and then like so that's impacted that, and I guess sometimes it makes you jaded. And what I mean by jaded is when a doctor says it's not as bad as it is, then unfortunately, sometimes I guess I minimize it because it's not worst case scenario. So I'm
Hmm.
probably not as compassionate as I should be because that's just like a stupid defense mechanism that I put up.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think like how does it impact? Like I'm just grateful
Hmm.
for today. Just grateful. We used to always joke that I'd probably die. I'm gonna die before Nicole because I'm so much older than her. And then there's a realization that that might not actually be the case.
Hmm.
And those are not fun rabbit trails to go down. So I don't go down them.
Hmm.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I know. For me, what's been pretty evident in especially long-term sickness is it does kind of bring up those thoughts of we start playing the what if game. What if
Mm-hmm.
this, what if that? And from my own experience of seeing family members have these, very, very serious diagnoses. Um, especially that's part of marriage, is that both the husband and wife feel the full burden of it, because I don't know, it's almost like the Bible talks about the two becoming one flesh kind of thing. I don't know, it's weird like that. but
Yeah.
but it really does kind of affect both people. Um, and I think that's where, obviously, since we're talking about biblical counseling, I mean, for you, how easy or how difficult is it to actually put into practice the spiritual side of it in your own life, rather than, oh, this is what you do with, your spouse, your mother, your father, kind of whatever. How
Yeah.
difficult is it for you to actually put into practice what you've talked about in the past with other people?
Now, easy.
Really?
I mean, yeah, now it's easy. 13 years ago, when I was a drug addict and alcoholic, obviously hard.
Mm,
Um, Part of the reason that drugs and alcohol were so appealing, I didn't have to deal with my emotions, didn't have to deal with my feelings. I could self medicate and not think, like just numb myself to a point where nothing matters.
hmm
There's a gosh, there's a Metallica song, "Nothing Else Matters." You ever heard of it, Matt?
I don't know if I've heard that one.
There's a let me see. There's a line in that song that it's so close, no matter how far. Couldn't be much more from the heart. Forever trusting who we are, nothing else matters. Never open myself this way. Life is ours. We live it our way. All these words I don't just say, and nothing else matters. Trust I seek, and I find in you every day for us something new. Open mind for a different view. Nothing else matters. And that's how I functioned for 13 years.
Mm,
Didn't matter. I mean, it mattered, which is what I was running from, but the reality was, whatever.
yeah.
I just had the whatever.
Mm,
And self medicating allowed me to have the whatever attitude. Um, but now it's kind of like I know where mom's going.
mm,
I know where Nicole's going. I know where I'm going. So there is some peace in that.
mm,
And there's also the perspective, like realizing that I was selfish wanting Grandpa O and Grandpa D to live longer because they were in so much pain. And I was holding on because I was selfish.
mm,
That the reality is, that there'd be no pain anymore when this world came to an end. And there's, I'm now hear me out. I am not wanting my mom or my wife to die. That's not what I'm saying.
I mean, it's the Philippians 1:21, for me to live as Christ and to die as gain. I want to be with Christ, but I also know that the goodness that God has for me to do on this earth is why I'm still here. It's that situation.
Yeah. And Nicole tells me, like, she does, I don't know how much pain she's in and how much pain been in for the last, however. And then whenever she tells me that, then I feel guilty. Like I should be more compassionate, or maybe I should do more for her. And it's like, as a husband, my job is to be a lover, learner, and a leader. My job is to protect my wife.
Mm,
And I can't. And that's hard. Like that part, hard.
mm,
Like that part is so hard. But then I have to remember, like, my job is not to fix my wife. My job is to point her to the cross,
mm,
get her into the word. And it's like, I feel like that sometimes.
mm.
And I guess that's why, in class, I'm pretty compassionate when you guys don't do it, or when you don't always do that with your counselees, and it's because I fail.
Mm.
But I think like that's the beauty of the cross is like God doesn't desire perfection from us.
Mm.
Like nowhere in the Bible does it say God desires perfection. He desires obedience.
Yep.
And I think like as we navigate life and we have hard times and we catch ourselves like, yeah, that wasn't God honoring. And we ask for forgiveness, we repent, that there's reconciliation, and we can move forward.
Mm.
And if I guess there's two things, like if you're listening to this and you have a loved one who is struggling, keep loving on them. Remember that your job is not to be their savior. Your job isn't to fix them. Your job is to love them, and that their hope can't be put in you, that their hope has to be put into Christ.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And you just patiently come alongside them, you check in on them, and whatever. And then if you're like supporting someone who's supporting a loved one, does that make sense? If you're supporting someone, so say like how you support me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's gentle, like 1 Thessalonians 5:14, right? Admonish, encourage, help, and be patient. So when there's times where admonishment needs to take place, then you admonish, say, hey, just because you're struggling or you've been sinned against doesn't give you a license to sin.
Mm.
So that's where admonishment takes place. And then if you need to encourage, like, hey, when Moses, right, had his arms held up,
Mm-hmm.
maybe your job is that friend is to hold your friend's arms up because they're too tired to keep their arms up right now, and encourage them, and then help whenever you can, whether that's taking a meal or offering whatever type of assistance you think is relevant in that situation. And then obviously being patient with them all, and then also like to help them not to lose hope, focusing on like 2 Corinthians 4:16-18, encouraging people not to lose heart as their present suffering in light of moment is just momentary, and that there's eternal glory ahead. And I hate to bring back our addiction talk that we were taking a break from, but one of the last things that I have is an eternal perspective.
Mm.
And why that is like when you're dealing with long-term suffering or long-term illness or whatever, that this is just temporary, that here on earth is just temporary, and that there's an eternal glory and an eternal restoration, that's when glory will happen. Does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you talked about reminded me of 2 Corinthians 4:16. Therefore, we do not give up. Even though the outer man is being destroyed, our inner man is being renewed day by day. And part of our job as those who are, more well off, I guess, is to continue to offer that hope of though the outer man is wasting away. Especially if you're going through long-term or especially very intense sickness, it really does feel like that. Like you're losing who you are. And it's a reminder that as long as we are, in the word, and we are encouraging people to continue to love the Lord and obey his commands, the inner man, who we are on the inside, is being renewed every single day. And, just that one thing, every day, new every day. It reminds me also of Lamentations 3, where Jeremiah is seeing all of the destruction going on from Babylon as they're destroying Jerusalem. And he's seeing the pain that everyone is experiencing all around him. And he writes this in Lamentations 3, starting in verse 20. I continually remember them and have become depressed, yet I call this to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's faithful love, we do not perish, for his mercies never end. They are new every morning, and great is your faithfulness. So I say, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will put my hope in him. And we have to remember that, the medical field is, again, a God-given miracle. Sometimes it seems like that we're able to make new discoveries and have new ways to cure different sicknesses, but ultimately, medicine will fail at a point. And so if we're just offering, hope that we can't even be sure of in medicine, then we are a failure. And we have to remind people that God, the creator of the universe, greater than anything else on this earth, is still working for your good and his glory. And for me, I'm reminded of, your mom, and especially when she was back in Hawaii working as a hairdresser, and people would come in and who knew about her sickness and talk and ask her, like, how can you stay so positive?
Yeah.
And it was a way for her to share her faith in the Lord. And that's something we need to really consider is our faith in medicine that will eventually fail because of our bodies are destined because of sin to be destroyed? Or are we going to put our hope in the Lord, who renews our inner man, our inner person, day by day? And the shift isn't a big shift, because it's just changing our focus off of the outside and looking, in our hearts on the inside. And so for you, Dr. O, when did that shift really occur, of when you stopped focusing on the physical, especially growing up seeing your mom's sickness?
6 months after I got sober, I had asked my mom, "Are you angry at God for your illness?" And she said no. So if my mom's not angry at God, then maybe I have zero place to be angry at God, because she's the one who's actually going through it, not me. And just hearing her say that, like, she goes, "Where were we? Probably at my grandma's house." And I just asked her, like, "Are you angry at God for myasthenia gravis? Are you what's the deal there?" And she goes, "Nope, not angry. It's actually brought me closer to the Lord, because that's who I not want to. I have to rely on Him for peace." And that simple, non-theological, not really deep conversation has had a 17-year impact for me. And after that, it just, who am I to be angry at God? Who am I to get frustrated at God? If she's not, then I just need to suck it up, and I just need to, quote unquote, deal with it. And I was talking to someone recently about BC, about biblical counseling, and they're like, "You're pretty just blunt and straightforward." And I'm like, yeah, I mean, why not? I think we have become soft and, like, walk around the edges on, we don't want to offend anyone. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. We need to say things with certain whatevers. And I'm like, I don't have time for that junk. It doesn't work. I mean, are we better off today than we were back when we just said it how it was? And I argue that we're in a worse position now, because we don't actually follow 1 Thessalonians 5:14. Well, actually we do, but we just focus on the encourage, help, and be patient, and we leave out the admonish part. And those three, absent of admonish, is just the world coddling people. but I also need to caution, like the admonishment part cannot be done out of hatred or angerness or bitterness or discord. Man, I just realized I'm using Galatians 5 there, but the the admonishment has to come from a place of love.
Mm,
And I would argue, if we truly love people, that we will admonish when admonishment needs to take place.
yep. Because I mean, the biggest issue is if someone has a, terminal illness, they don't always need to be, gently let down. Sometimes it's like, hey, there's some things you need to get in order.
Yeah.
And whenever we're dealing with, especially long-term sicknesses that, it's most likely not going to kill you, but you're going to have to deal with it for the rest of your life.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that could be said, but then there are things that need to be said. And there's some things, sometimes the best answer is, God is still in control over all of this. And he still loves you. And he still has things for you to do. I mean, I mentioned Philippians 1:21, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain. While we're still on this earth, God has something for us. And we don't have to look very far to figure out what Paul talked about. And it was living for others, dying to himself, no matter the difficulty, and doing what he can to serve God by serving other people.
Yeah.
And for those who suffer with long-term sicknesses, we can't use that as an excuse to not doing anything anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have, oh my gosh. So I don't know if you recognize this. I've been in Philippians a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And
not a bad place to be.
No, it is not. I got to remember his name. It's a big, not English name. So I'm definitely going to say it incorrectly. You have Epaphroditus, who Paul says, verse 26, since he has been longing for all of you, as he was distressed because you heard that he was sick. Indeed, he was so sick that he nearly died. However, God had mercy on him, not only but also on him, but also on me. And what we have to remember is Epaphroditus was actually serving Paul while he was almost dying from sickness. Epaphroditus saw that his pain and suffering was actually a way, kind of like your mom, to give glory to the Lord. And Paul recognized this very quickly. He's like, it's not only that God blessed Epaphroditus by healing him, he blessed me through Epaphroditus. And that's the question we have to ask ourselves is, even though I'm dealing with sickness, am I still living to give God praise, glory, and honor, or I'm just wallowing in my self-pity? I doing a lot of reading. I've actually been fasting electronics. So I would come home from work and not even like turn on my screens or anything. So I've been doing a lot of reading. And I read this one book from Alistair Begg, and he talked about, and the book's on Joseph and the hope that Joseph had in God. And one of the things that Alistair Begg wrote in that section of Joseph being thrown into the pit and being thrown into jail, and he talked about how our own emotions can become a prison for us. And there needs to be someone greater to bring us out of that prison. And for Joseph, it was his faith in the Lord that even in prison, he still rose to prominence because of his faith in the Lord. And because of that, God greatly blessed him. I mean, Dr. O, since Nicole had received her diagnosis, how has she been a blessing to you since then?
She never complains. Well, I take that back. She does sometimes, but with the amount of pain that she's been in, and just seeing how she does her job. She's a good wife. She's a, I was going to say great mom, and people are going to say, well, why did you say she's been a great wife, a great mom,
Mm.
like she's a warrior like my mom.
Mm.
And it puts, all of my stuff, well, I'm going to say my bad back isn't that bad. Well, no, it is. I went to the ER for it. But, puts a lot of, me being tired or whatever into perspective. Like if she's not complaining, I need to just shut up and suck it up. And people are like, whoa, whatever. I'm too tired to care about feelings right now. But, if more of us just did that, shut up, sucked it up, did our job, trusted God, moved forward in life, we wouldn't have as many quote unquote mental health issues as we do today. But we're a bunch of babies and we've been coddled, and it's not good for society, and it's definitely not good for the church. We
Mm.
all need to, for men, we need to man up. We need to realize that God is sovereign, lay everything at the feet of Christ, and then go do what he's commanded us to do, which is to make disciples of all nations. And if you're a woman in here, obviously I'm gonna say man up, but look at my mom and look at my wife. They have not allowed their illness to stop them from ministry. Nicole's sick, but she still serves on the AV team at church. Nicole's sick, and she still helps me with counseling stuff, like marriage counseling and whatever. So even for ladies, like I'm not gonna say man up, but look at the example that my wife and mom have set,
Mm.
and they don't use their illness as an excuse to not serve.
Yep. It's something that is, it cuts deep, but also something that needs to be said.
Yeah,
Of both husband and wife suffer together, and
yeah,
I think that's, we there's beauty in bearing each other's burdens. Again, it's almost like that's a biblical principle or something.
mm,
But when we take on each other's pain, it just, things get lighter, things get easier to deal with.
yeah,
So continue to, you know, give hope, give, comfort to those who are suffering. And if you are suffering, then continue to rely on the Lord for your strength to get through every single day. And, some days are going to be better than others. And some days it feels like you're, one step away from from everything collapsing and everything just failing.
yeah,
And what we have to remember is, the tried and true, sometimes overplayed verse of Romans 8:28, for we know this, that God works everything, for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purposes. Is we don't just experience these things because God wants us to suffer. We experience these things because God is preparing us for something greater. And in this moment, we don't realize it. And we probably won't ever realize it on this side of heaven.
mm,
But that doesn't mean that God isn't working through your suffering. So remember that. And I pray that that is an encouragement for you, that God
mm,
sees you. He still hears you. I don't know how many times, in the book of Psalms, it talks about, God is near the brokenhearted and those who are suffering. So
yeah,
just know that God is still close to you, and he still listens to you whenever you cry out in pain or in joy. It's the same God who loved you even before you were sick, and it'll be the same God who will love you forever when we are made perfect in glory.
mm.
So that is all the time we have for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you ever need any encouragement, just reach out to us at our email. You can find it down in the description. You can find all our good stuff down there. Dr. O, do you have any final thoughts?
Dealing with a sick family member isn't easy, but God can be glorified in it, and it is part of your sanctification as well.
Hmm.
And if any of you who are listening to this are struggling and you want to ask more questions, email Matt. I was going to drop my Calendly link, and I'm like, Yeah, no. Not
Well,
gonna do it. Email Matt, and Matt will be my filter.
absolutely. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see y'all in the next one.
All right, be good. Don't be stupid.
Bye, everybody.